Good morning, everyone. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. So, it's been a couple weeks since I've been here. 2 weeks ago, one of my best friends in the entire Mike is coming. There it is. So, a couple weeks ago, one of my best friends, Jonathan, was here and he preached. Thank you for loving him and taking good care of him. He's been a best friend of mine for many, many years. We grew up together, actually. Last week, if you are part of the flock of Adventism, perhaps you heard about this thing called camp meeting that happened right in our backyard here. And it was a blast and a lot of fun and too hot. Too hot. I am glad that the sun is out today, but I'm glad it's not 90 degrees. And I'm thankful that each one of you is here. So I've titled this sermon, Removed, and we're going to talk a lot about things that are removed or people that are removed. So I want you to keep that in mind. That's our word for today. Kids, if you're counting, it is the word removed. We'll be looking at the story found in Luke chapter 8, starting in verse 26. So if you have your Bible, I encourage you to open it up and sit with the word this morning. Look at this story that Jesus is a part of according to the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter 8, verse 26. This sermon will be like a symphony in some ways. I'm a musician. I play the violin, and so I like symphonies. This sermon will have 3 movements to it and a coda at the end. If you're musical or if you know what a coda is, it's like the tail. So think of like a dog, like the tail of the dog. It's like at the end of the body of what we do. So there will be 3 movements that we sort of walk through and then a tail at the end. But the text goes like this, starting in verse 26 of chapter 8. Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time, he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. He cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he, Jesus, had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But the man would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. In verse 30, Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now, a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. So Jesus gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. So Jesus got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with Jesus. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And he went away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. That's the story we're going to be looking at this morning. It's a lengthy passage, a few verses to unpack this morning. Our first movement this morning is about demons. Something that we don't often talk about in church, something that is not a friendly, comforting topic. Out of all the things to talk about, it is usually on the lower end of the priority list because they're not good. Let's not mix words here. Let's not get it twisted. Demons aren't good things, but they appear in this story, and they're worth unpacking, and they're worth investigating for the sake of this story. It says that in verse 26, Jesus and the disciples sailed to the country of the Gerasenes opposite the Galilee, and when Jesus stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. And if we pause right there with this man, there's a lot of things we don't know about him. And when you read through the stories we've just done, you'll realize we really don't know a lot about this gentleman. We don't know if he has a family. We don't know who his parents are. We don't know if he was born in this city. We don't know how old he is. We don't know if he has kids. We don't know if he has siblings or a wife. All we know is that this man is from the city. He has a community of some sort. The other thing we know about this man is that he has demons. Luke very quickly establishes two things: the man's past, where he is from, and his present, his current affliction. The man has demons. And right there, if you're like me, there's a temptation to check out of this story, to remove ourselves from this character, because I haven't been afflicted by demons, and I'm willing to wager that many of you today have not either. If you watch horror movies or have heard about them or see trailers of them, demons are these things that overtake, possess, control, and they're really scary. Perhaps if you've been on a mission trip, perhaps you've heard stories about demon possession and exorcisms that have occurred. Oftentimes we limit ourselves to this view, to this purview of what demons are. That if this hasn't happened to you, if you're not like this man who speaks with voices, who has his eyes rolled back, and it's a scary, terrifying situation, then demons don't exist for you. I want to push you this morning, though. I want to push you to connect with this gentleman, with this man, child of God, created in his image, who is afflicted, who is hurting, who is in pain. Many ministers will talk about how, when we talk about idols, that a lot of time we narrow down idols like we've done with demons. We narrow them down into this little box, that if you don't have a big graven image on your counter at home or in your bedroom or in your bathroom, that idols really aren't like they were in the past. We don't have them. We've modernized this, though, to say that anything that takes over, anything that focuses you apart from Jesus, that you spend all your time prioritizing, that is an idol. I would push you one step further this morning. That whatever it is that pushes you towards the idols in your lives, any force, any drive that brings you into this place is demonic. So though your demons this morning may not look as overwhelming or as scary or as theatrical as what you may have heard or thought about previously, the things that push you away from Jesus, the things that torment you, the voices in your head that tell you you're not enough, the voices that tell you you're too much, these are in fact demonic. And that's scary. But it also allows us to connect with our friend here, our fellow human who is tormented day and night, driven into isolation, into the desert, away from his community, his family, his friends. And I'm willing to wager, wherever your demons are this morning, whatever those things are that force you away from Jesus, they too will push you into isolation. They will isolate you. They will drive you into the proverbial wilderness, away from church, away from family, away from friends. But luckily, that's not where the story ends. We're just getting started. This is where I love that Jesus is part of this story. That we have a God who shows up to the man driven away from his family, from his community by the demons, that Jesus shows up for him. He meets Jesus when Jesus gets off the boat, not a step off onto the shore, but this man arrives, Luke puts it. Jesus meets the man there. And they begin this dialogue, this exchange. The man cries out with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." You see, when we're confronted with the things that hurt and haunt and torment us, when Jesus shows up, that can be scary. It can be changing. It can mean releasing or getting rid of or escaping from something that we don't know what next looks like. Jesus commands the unclean spirit in verse 29. It said he commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, to release him, to let go, to be gone from this man. And this is the same Jesus that shows up to you today, to whatever hurt you have, to whatever pains you experience. Jesus calls you this morning and commands those spirits out of you. He removes them from you. Whatever it is that has removed you from your community, from your family, from your wholeness, from your healthiness, Jesus shows up and says, "Enough. Be gone. Leave." To back up for a moment, I want you to remember the context of this story. That the story immediately preceding what we have here, where Jesus shows up for this guy and commands the demons out of him, we have Jesus sailing across the Sea of Galilee with his disciples. The verses immediately preceding show us Jesus sailing across with a singular purpose, to meet this man. It says that he goes across, he wants to go to the other side. We don't know why, but the disciples do. And along the way, they meet a storm. They find themselves trapped in a space where life and death is at stake. And Jesus calms the storm, commands nature, says, "Peace, be still," for the purpose of meeting this man on the other shore. The work of salvation, the act of God in your life today, when God shows up to you today, he comes for you. Not because there's 6 or 7 other people alongside of you. No, for this man, for you today, Jesus shows up just for you. The story continues, though. That the man had been seized, in verse 29, had been seized by the demons. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, and he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Jesus then says in verse 30, he asks, "What is your name?" And famously, in other Gospels, and when we've preached this story, we'll tell it that we'll focus on what is the demon's response. The demon responds and it says legion, and we'll focus then on what is a legion. There's 3,000 to 6,000 men, typically like a Roman legionary. They would have been commanded. And so this is a way to describe how many afflictions, how many demons torment this poor man. I encourage you, though, to reflect earlier. When Jesus asks, who does he address? Jesus says, Luke says, Jesus then asked him. Singular. One person. Not a multitude, not them, as the story goes on and focuses. The story then proceeds to go on and talks about them when it refers to the demons. But when Jesus asks the question, "What is your name?" it says it's to him, to the man. And in this moment, we get a beautiful insight to the character of God. That amongst all the rain clouds, all of the things, all of the traumas and the things that hurt, the things that Jesus will remove, Jesus speaks to you, to the man, singular, one-on-one, and asks him, what is your name today? Not what are the things that torment you, not what are the entities that traumatize you, or that give you unsettled sleep at night. What is your name? Who are you? Because I'm here for you. The story goes on, verse 31, that the demons begged Jesus not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged Jesus to let them enter these, so he gave them permission, even in a moment of crisis and in a moment of spiritual warfare. Jesus still shows mercy. He could command to the utmost and be the most vengeful and vindictive to entities that deserve it. But Jesus in this moment allows for something more merciful. Then the demons came out of the man, entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Spurgeon, a famous Christian preacher and theologian, put it this way, that even swine preferred death to devilry. That even in this moment where they face possession, they lunge themselves towards death because that is better than being possessed. And if humans were wiser, we would choose the same. In this moment, though, we've met our first two movements. We've met the demons, and we've addressed them. That each one of us has our struggles and our hurts and our pains. Simultaneously, we've met the antidote. We've met Jesus, and we're grateful for him, that he calls us by name, he speaks to us individually, and he addresses us and saves us, each and every one. So what possibly could the third movement be? Well, there's quite a bit left to unpack in this story. And I want to talk to you about community, because that is our third movement this morning. What do we do as community? This community in verse 34 is where we're introduced to them, although they're subtly mentioned earlier in the passage with their decision to guard and bind this man. In verse 34, it says that the herdsmen saw what had happened. They fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, what happened? They were afraid. What should they be? Happy? Joyful? Excited? Thankful? Grateful? Kind? No, they are afraid. And in this sense, we find a story that I think serves as a warning, as a cautionary tale to us. Because this morning, I assure you that Jesus will show up to somebody, to you, to me, to the person to your left or to your right, the person behind you, the person out on the street, the person down the road from you in your neighborhood. And when Jesus shows up, things will change. Things will look different. And there will be cost when Jesus shows up. For this community, for these people, they owned a lot of pigs. That was their wealth. That was their prosperity. That was their culture. That was their economy. And so when Jesus sends the demons, when he casts the demons out, removes them from the man and puts them into the pigs, and all the pigs run away and they dive into the water and drown, the cost of this man being healed is a direct hit to the wallets of every single person in this town. To have someone restored into the family, into the community, is a costly one. So I challenge you this morning with a question to ponder about, to question, to resolve, to re-examine and converse with and wrestle with God this morning on. What pigs do you prefer to people? What pigs would you rather have still on the hillside than to have someone join? Who is out there this morning suffering, tormented, hurting, that the community has decided we're okay with being out there? Who have we resolved that, you know what? It's better for us just to bind them and put them out there and attach them and let them live in the tombs or in the desert, because that's convenient. It's easy for me. I'll keep my pigs. I'll keep my wealth. I'll keep my tradition. I'll keep my thing. I'll keep my reality the way that it is. Because I challenge you that Jesus shows up to this community and he flips their whole reality up on its head. He takes a man that had been the problem of their community, the social outcast, the one beyond the walls, and he brings him back inside at the cost of these people's lives and their well, not their lives, but their convenience, their comfort, their economy, their wealth, their generational happiness. Jesus pushes against that. He rebels against that and says, it is good for this son of mine to come home, to be part of the family again. Should we not celebrate? Should we not rejoice together? But instead, we have this community that is afraid. The story goes on. And it says that they saw, those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. I believe this fear occurs in two fronts. One, it is the fear of what Jesus has done. That Jesus has shown up and he's upended everything. He's flipped the narrative on its head. He's taken away things that we liked beforehand. And he's brought in somebody that was unsafe and scary and the other and brought them in. That's scary enough on its own. The second thing, though, is the fear of what Jesus will do next. Because Jesus doesn't seem to be in the business of just stopping with one person. Jesus typically continues on. And so what happens when Jesus shows up in your home and pushes the demons out of your life that are convenient? Or pushes up against the things that are comfortable and tells you to get rid of those? Or comes to the closet in your house where all that stuff is that shouldn't be there? Or when Jesus says, hey, it's time to move somewhere else today. All of that is very scary. All of that is change. And yet I believe it's what's meant when Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. That is not a comfortable place, and it is not a place absent of change. So Jesus, meeting these people with their fear, hearing how terrified they are, says, all right, I'll walk away. You don't want me here. And in this space, we find a beautiful yet painful expression of Jesus. That Jesus is willing to honor the community's decision for him to leave. And he does. But I don't believe that Jesus walks away smiling. I believe Jesus is crying as he leaves these people, unwilling to change, holding on to the things that they prefer to the direction he wants to call them into. So are you appropriately sad now? Discouraged maybe? This is where we hit the coda, the tail. Because I think it would be hard to leave us here in this place of discouragement. So I want to encourage you for a moment with this. The story ends like this, that the man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with Jesus. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And he went away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. Are we not like this man from whom the demons had gone, begging to be where Jesus is? If you've been part of the flock of Adventism for a few years, or if you're new, one of the things that we desperately look forward to is the Advent. It is in our name. We look forward to that second coming. Our very movement is born out of a desire to see Jesus come back again soon. And in that space, we sit and we wait and we beg and we plead, "Jesus, come soon. Let me be where you are today. Let me go on the boat where you're headed. Let me go across the river to Galilee, to the promised land." Amen. And that's good. Jesus does not ridicule the man for that desire. It is good to want to be where Jesus is. And simultaneously, we find ourselves here today on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. We find ourselves here waiting and wondering and hearing the words of Jesus, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." I don't know when Jesus showed up for you last, when he exorcised the demons from your life, when he took away the hurts and the pains, and he arrived for you. And perhaps that needs to happen again, and it will happen again today. But I encourage you, return home, declaring how much God has done for you today. How much God has removed from your life this morning, these years, as you walk beside him.